Let's use these formulas to convert between radians and degrees and radians. So 1a we have degrees, so we're going to use the first formula, which means we're going to put the 180 underneath, and we're going to put the pi on top. So we're going to simplify that. When you simplify negative 45 divided by 180, you can type it in your calculator and then press math, enter, enter. It will give you negative 1/4. Then you just put the pi next to it and you're done. An even better way to write your answer would be negative pi over 4. That's the way you'll see it written on the unit circle. Try 1b. Hopefully you divided by 180, you put pi on top. When you type in 80 divided by 180, or if you just simplify it, you'll get 4/9, and then we'll put the pi on top. Next for 1c, now this time we want to go from radians back to degrees, so we're going to use this formula. We're going to do the opposite. Instead of dividing by 180, we're going to multiply by 180, and instead of putting pi on top, we're going to put pi on bottom. So let's do that. Let's multiply the top by 180, and on bottom, we're going to put a pi. That way we can cancel out what cancels out, so now the pi on top and the pi on bottom will cancel, and we're going to multiply negative 5 times 180. When we do that, we'll get negative 900, and then you can divide it by 6, and you'll get negative 150, and make sure you put the degree sign. Next, try 1d on your own. You should have multiplied by 180 on top, put a pi on bottom, canceled out the pi's. 2 times 180 is 360, divide it by 9, and you get 40 degrees. All right, next we have the definition of our unit circle. Sorry about that. The unit circle has a radius 1. When we think about what sine equals, we say it equals y, because we are always talking about the opposite part of a triangle, which is the vertical part. For cosine, it's x, because it's the adjacent part, which is along the x-axis. And tangent is y over x. We had those written down on another set of notes. You also need to know the reciprocals of each of those trig functions. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So instead of just y over 1, it's going to be 1 over y. The reciprocal of cosine is secant, so it will be 1 over x. And the reciprocal of tangent is cotangent, so it's going to be the x on top of the y. So let's look at the unit circle. Hopefully you have yours handy. And we are going to figure out the exact value of these trig functions. You could just take your calculator, make sure it's in degrees mode, type in cosine of 210, and it would give you some decimal. But we don't want decimals. We want the exact values. So we are going to look for the angle 210, and if you look on your unit circle, you will see that it is down in the third quadrant, and we're going to look at the ordered pair that's right there. When you look at 210, you'll see negative square root of 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Since we want cosine, and cosine is x, all we need, remember cosine's x, all we need is the x value. So our answer here is negative square root of 3 over 2. Done. Now you try to find sine 315. Find it on the unit circle. Write down the ordered pair, and then figure out if you need x or if you need y. Hopefully you found the point square root of 2 over 2, negative square root of 2 over 2, because 315 is down in the fourth quadrant. Sine is y, so we need the y value. And so our answer is negative square root of 2 over 2. That's an equals. All right, the last one is tangent. This time we'll need both y and x for our answers. So let's find where it says on the unit circle we have 5 pi over 3. When you find 5 pi over 3, you will see that it is in the fourth quadrant, and it's just below the x-axis. So the coordinate right there is 1/2, and then negative square root 3 over 2. So this time we need both x and y. Tangent is y over x, so we're going to put negative square root of 3 over 2 over the x, which is 1/2. Now you might be thinking that that looks sort of crazy to solve, but anytime you want to divide by a fraction, all you do is you multiply the top by the reciprocal of the bottom. So we're going to flip over the 1/2, so it's 2 over 1, ignore the bottom, and solve this part on top. We're going to multiply this by this. Well, if you look, we have a 2 on top and a 2 on bottom. Cross them out. So it's going to equal negative square root of 3 over 1, or just negative square root 3. For these last problems, it's my hope that you eventually memorize the first quadrant of the unit circle. So I have the first quadrant drawn in right here, and we're going to use a reference angle to find the exact values of sine, cosine, and tangent. So instead of up in example 2 where we only found 1 that it asked for, we're going to find all 3. So let's think about where 225 degrees is. And if you think about it, 225, is down here in the third quadrant. So since it ends in a 5, its reference angle is 45. So we're going to look at the 45 degree angle, which would be right here, and we're going to look at those coordinates. It's the square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2 over 2. And I'm going to jot those down. Square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. So we have those. We know that this is x, we know that this is y, and we just need to make sure that our signs are right. If we're in the third quadrant, both x and y are negative. So I'm going to put negative and negative. And now I can write out all of the trig functions. So cosine of 225 is going to equal x, so it's going to equal negative square root 2 over 2. Sine of 225 is going to equal y. That's also negative square root 2 over 2. And tan 225 is going to equal y over x. So I need to put the y, negative square root 2 over 2, over the x, which is also negative square root 2 over 2. So that looks crazy too. But guess what? We have the exact same thing on top and bottom, so this all simplifies to equaling 1. The negative times the negative makes it a positive 1. For this last one, I had to cut off quadrant 1, so we're just going to have to hope that you have your unit circle filled out next to you. And we need to find the angle 11 pi over 6. Well, it's in radians, so look around your circle for the radians, and it turns out that 11 pi over 6 is about right here. It matches up with the angle that's 330 degrees, if that's easier for you to find. We'll still need to write our answers in terms of the radians right here, but we see it matches up with 330. So the reference angle for that, since it's 30 degrees away from the x-axis, will be 30. So we take the ordered pair for 30, which is the square root of 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. We adjust the sign. Since we're down in the fourth quadrant, x will be positive and y will be negative. And now we have x, and we have y, and we can write out our trig functions. So cosine of 11 pi over 6 is x, so it's the square root of 3 over 2. Sine 11 pi over 6 is y, so it's going to be negative 1/2. And tan 11 pi over 6 will be the y, so negative 1/2 over the x, which is the square root of 3 over 2. So this needs to be fixed. We're going to take the bottom and flip it over and multiply by that on the top. So we're going to multiply by 2 over the square root of 3. Once we do that, we don't have to worry about that down there. And now we just simplify what we can simplify. I notice here I have a 2 on top and a 2 on bottom, so those are gone. I'm left with negative 1 over the square root of 3. The only problem here is we can't leave that square root of 3 on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply on the bottom and on the top by the square root of 3. And the final answer will be negative square root 3 over 3, because those all cancel out. Done.